Hey guys, welcome to Think Aside. Today I wanted to talk about something that has kind of been on my mind. It's been brought up in a few conversations I've had lately, and that is happiness as a whole. And I have a pretty strong passion in regards to what it takes to be happy and what really makes one happy. And though I, of course, don't know all the answers, and though I too struggle with the idea of, being consistently and constantly happy, I've come to realize that, happiness doesn't come cheap. it it's not something that we can just wake up with and, you know, go to bed with and have in a year from now and just hope for and we'll receive it. Happiness is something that we oftentimes have to work for. It takes sacrifice. It's something that we literally have to figure out. We have to decide what we want and sacrifice what we don't need to get it. And oftentimes, I think and you could argue that going back to economy, and we talk a lot about that on this channel, and how, inflation, it kind of encourages you to spend money. It's kind of the same thing with the idea of happiness. We're in a society where we just consume. We're taught, just consume, 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 just consume. And so as a result, we don't really think long term minded, right? And that goes with our money, but it also goes with our happiness. It goes with goals and how we oftentimes don't think something is achievable because it's a year from now, it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now. 10 years, like that's a long time. You can't possibly plan for something that far away. And if we do, how long are we going to actually work toward it before we give up? And so it's the same thing with happiness. In order to get the things that we know or at least assume will make us happy, oftentimes we have to get rid of the things that are immediately making us happy for the moment and then fading. And that could be a multitude of things. It doesn't have to be necessarily with bad, very bad things. You could say, like, drugs, um, alcohol, things like that, where it makes you happy for the moment, and then you wake up the next morning and you either feel like you shouldn't have, or it's affecting your mind to the point where you don't really feel all that good, and then you don't feel as motivated, or you feel kind of just down. It drains, it pulls from your future self, from that happiness you could have had, and it takes it all at once, and then it fades away, and now you're left with nothing. It's like if you go and you spend a bunch of money. All right, you take out, say, tax season comes and you get a refund of $3,000, $7,000, whatever, and you're like, oh yes, I have some money. I'm gonna go spend it because it'll make me happy. Then you go spend that money, and then you spend a little more, and you put yourself in a position where you don't have any money. Now you're living paycheck to paycheck again, and all because you spent that money for a little bit of happiness, which, yeah, you probably were happy in the moment, but it didn't last. It's not long term happiness. It's not true happiness. It's that hit of dopamine type of happiness. And so that's kind of what I feel so important about is, think aside the idea of live for the moment. Is, what about live for the moment, enjoy the moment, but live for the future too, prepare for the future. And so when we want happiness, we have to be willing to give up something to have something else. You can't do whatever you want and have whatever you want. It's one or the other. You can't spend a bunch of money now and then have money later, right? Sometimes you have to not spend any money now so you can have more money later. Let it build up, make it work for you. Sometimes you might not know how to do that. So now learn, right? There's knowledge plentiful. And so spending time, sacrificing our time for not just the employer, but for ourselves, sacrifice our time to learn, to grow, to achieve, instead of sacrificing our time to make some money from an employer and then, relax because, well, our day of work is done, and shifting our mindset from that idea, and instead constantly working for ourselves first and working for the employer solely for the money so we can work for ourselves some more, so we can achieve more for ourselves. And when we shift our mindset like that, that's when we start to be happy, when we start putting the things that we want to achieve first. When we have a passion, then we find that thing, we seek it out, and we find the passion that drives us, then we can have more of a reason to be happy, to seek out the things that we need. And when we're able to find those things that make us happy, those passions, when we create something, when we give our time for something and we feel proud of it, it feeds on it, it makes us happy. But then because we're doing it and it makes us happy, then we're going to do it more, which is going to make us happier. And so it comes down to sacrifice. We're giving our time. We're sacrificing what we could be doing. We could be watching Netflix or playing a video game. I love video games, but I find that I at times play too much of them. And so I have to be mindful of that so I can take some of that time and sacrifice it elsewhere. I can put it into, making these videos so I can help myself and kind of remind myself and, feed that passion that I love talking about these kind of things. But at the same time, hopefully instill a little bit more passion in you, in those people who might need a little flame to their fire, those who don't have enough around them, surrounding them, firewood, people feeding them firewood. you know I think oftentimes if we surround ourselves with negativity, then we're going to be negative. If we surround ourselves around positivity, whether that's TV or YouTube video interviews, if it's music, if it's going outside, or whatever it is, like when we surround ourselves with positivity, we will be more positive. Just the same with negativity, except for positivity tends to be, it seems, harder to have a consistent and constant impact than negativity. Negativity is easy. You get a hit of that once and you could be negative for days. You get a hit of positivity and it might be fleeting in the next 10 seconds. So we have to be mindful of what we give ourselves, what we feed ourselves physically, right? What we eat. What if we talked about gut bacteria and mitochondria and how that very much impacts our mind, our chemical balance, and who we are, and what we're able to be. And we have to be mindful of that, of course, but we also have to be mindful of what we feed our brain. We have to be mindful of what we submit ourselves to. If we put ourselves in situations of, say it's a harmless advertisement, but it's still instilling your mind. They have a form of manipulation to it. Their whole goal with the advertisement, they're paying a bunch of money to get it to you, right? Their goal isn't just to, give you some neat thing to think about. Like, oftentimes their goal is to sell you something. They're trying to manipulate you to do something that benefits them. And so we have to be mindful of those things. We have to be mindful of the shows that we watch. It all impacts our happiness, our peace of our inner soul, of our mind, whatever you want to call it. And there's things like meditation that's extremely beneficial, and that's where, you could say prayer if you're religious. Prayer is a form of meditation, I would argue. We need to stop distracting ourselves. We need to focus more on what's in front of us and keep it simple. So that way we can strive for the things that we think will make us happy. And that's my goal here, is just think aside from the common actions of society, of the live for the moment and just forget about the rest. Let's move past that. Let's get aside from that, and instead let's prepare for the future. If you're maybe you don't think you'll be alive in 20 years, but what if you are, right? Prepare for that possibility. What if you think like, well, I'm going to be a millionaire next year? Maybe I'm getting a really good job and I'm making $100,000 a year, right? Obviously that's not going to make you a millionaire, but if you're making, in a few years, of course, but if you're making that kind of money and you think, well, I'll be fine. Well, what about learning how to prepare for the possibility of you losing that job or not being able to do it anymore? Or what if the money itself collapses, right? Like, there's there's so many aspects that we should take into account. I'm not trying to overwhelm a person. I'm not trying to, make you feel like there's so many things to prepare for, so why bother? But start simple, keep it simple. Focus on the what ifs, but also focus on what's in front of you. Keep the goals going. Break them up. Do what makes you happy. Focus on happiness. Remember, it takes self-discipline. You have to be willing to get rid of the things that are negative and are holding you back in order to get the things that you want, that are going to bring you forward. And it's hard, but it is possible. And as you do it, that willpower will become stronger. And then you will be able to achieve more. And then as you achieve more, you will see that you aren't so different from those who have achieved great things. You simply just do different things. And so you need to do more things that will make you more what? More successful in your relative desires, in your relative mind of what happiness is. Thank you.